So we're back with another episode of BS Busters, or should I say a BS Busters simple soliloquy video. Now, this video isn't going to be up to the normal quality of a lot of my other videos in terms of sound and music and stuff like that. Mostly because I had to completely reinstall Windows 10 because I couldn't repair Windows 10 and just a lot of bad shit happened. So without much ado, I had to play it the hard way, as it were. So with that being said,
I'll lead the way. Soldiers, formation.
what does that mean for you? It means that until I can get everything back to some semblance of like having the files and my audio files moved around and everything set up, these videos might be a little bit more bare bones than per usual, but it is what it is. So before we go any further, just wanted to give you that information. Now, on to the nature of this video. This video is going to be me talking about the truth about the 9th gen, 8th gen, and 7th gen consoles. Because we're hearing people say that the Switch isn't a 9th gen system. Now, that's complete and utter bullshit. But I'll get into why this narrative is false and patently false after the cut. So now we have to ask the big question, which is what is 9th gen? Or to be precise, what is a generation? Console generation has nothing to do with power, nothing to do with capabilities. It simply means the successor to the previous, whatever the previous thing was. So, like, all of the 3rd gen systems that came out in the mid to late 80s, mostly the mid 80s, the early to mid 80s, all of those systems were 3rd gen. Okay? Doesn't matter what their technical abilities were, they were all 3rd gen systems because they were the successors to the previous generation of gaming devices. Okay? Consoles in that regard. So, up to this point, we've had 9 console generations for everybody. And it's not one continuous successive nine generations of consoles. The oldest console manufacturer in the business right now is Nintendo because they started in the 3rd gen with their consoles. Before Nintendo, there was Magnavox and Television, ColecoVision, and Atari. Okay, and and Atari and Fairchild. And numerous Atari knockoffs back in the day. Even Nintendo had some Atari knockoffs. But, we're not talking about the 1st and 2nd gen of consoles. We're talking about 3rd gen forward. So, the successor to the 3rd gen consoles were the consoles that came after that. So, so that was the next generation. So, really, the 4th gen began in 88 with the TurboGrafx 16, even though the TurboGrafx 16 wasn't really a 16-bit console, but we'll consider it as being so. So there you go, the beginning of the 4th gen. Nintendo was late to the 4th gen with the SNES. SNES didn't come out till '92. First, it went with the TurboGrafx 16, then the Sega Genesis, then in '89. So TurboGrafx 16 in like November of '88. Then the next year, I think in like January, February, March, the Sega Genesis in Japan, and in '89, and worldwide like that fall, that holiday season. And then it was still 2 years until Nintendo came out with the Super Nintendo, which was their 4th gen system. Okay. Then the 5th gen got started with, you know,
Now I've got you, Wait, listen to me.
stuff like the 3DO, the Jaguar, the N64, the PlayStation, which was Sony's first console, but a 5th gen console. It came out during the 5th generation of consoles. Then the 6th gen, which was the PS2, the original Xbox, the GameCube, okay, and the Dreamcast. Those were 6th gen systems. Okay. Then you have the 7th gen, which was the Wii, the PS3, the Xbox 360. Then the 8th gen, PS4, Xbox One, and the Wii U. Then the 9th gen, which began with the Switch. Okay, that is a 9th gen system. Now, like I said, generation has nothing to do with capabilities. Because, I mean, as someone who owns a Wii U and owns a Switch, there are games that run much better to me on the Wii U than the Switch. Case in point, Xenoblade Chronicles X is a technically more impressive game to me than Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in terms of all the stuff that's going on in that game. Like, the foliage, the various bits of clothing your character is wearing, and it can be swapped out. The detail on the scales, like there's a lot of shit going on. The individual parts you can bust off of certain enemies as you fight them, large enemies, megafauna. That they did not have any of that in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Like, there's no costume changes except for in-game story costume changes. And, there's no mechs that you can pilot. There's not a lot of character customization, except for, the artificial summon that you can get in the game. So, that is, to me, there's more going on in Xenoblade Chronicles X. And yet, that was on an 8th gen system. So that leads to the unfortunate truth about generations. Basically, from the jump to the 6th gen to the 7th gen, there hasn't been anything really new added to gaming in terms of gameplay concepts. Like, the worlds are getting bigger, but the amount of detail in those worlds isn't getting bigger. Case in point, there's a certain level of detail in a game like GTA, San Andreas, that modern sandbox games, like set in cities where people are walking around, just don't have. All right? So what I'm saying is this. The next generation doesn't mean, and has not meant for the last 3 gens since the jump from the 6th to the 7th, have you really had, okay, this is new, this is adding some new gameplay. Aside from Nintendo did add, bring back motion controls. They did have off-screen play, and some games really did utilize off-screen play very well with the Wii U. And the Switch, the Switch has a lot of gimmicks, but I would say the only one that's really being utilized by a lot of people is the portability of the device. So, aside from that, none of these consoles are doing anything that couldn't have been done either the same or to a lesser degree on last-gen hardware. None of them. Okay? If you're playing a game on the PS4, on the PS5, or the Xbox Series X, there is nothing running on those systems right now, and I'm guessing probably even into the future. There is no game running on those consoles that could not have been run to a lesser degree on last-gen hardware. Period. Okay? The only gameplay feature that the Xbox Series X has that is remarkably even attractive for the device is Game Pass. But here's the thing: Game Pass is on the last gen systems. It's on PC, so you really don't need an Xbox Series X if you really don't want one. With Sony, like, aside from there being a shortage of the hardware manufacturing components to make PS5s, there's no reason to own a PS5. None. Zero. Zip. So, like, basically, Nintendo came out with the Switch. The only reason that the PS5 and the Xbox Series X were launched is because, like, basically Sony and Microsoft couldn't let the Switch just run rampant, because it has been running rampant. It's at like 90 million units sold, and to be fair, Nintendo hasn't really been breaking their legs to come out with new shit for the system. All right. Okay, they haven't been necessarily, making wowing gaming experiences. I mean, the games on the system are good, but nothing where I'm like, oh man, that was memorable. I haven't played it yet. And that's just my own personal opinion. So with that being said, what does this mean for gamers? And why did I make this video? I'll get to that after the cut. So the reason I'm making this video is because I'm hearing a lot of people in the gaming community say that, well, the Switch isn't a 9th gen system, because, insert arbitrary reason. Well, I hate to break this to you, but, like, I agree, the Switch isn't what I would consider my ideal Nintendo console. But no matter how I feel about it, the Switch is a 9th gen gaming device. It's Nintendo's 9th gen gaming console. They call it a console. They consider it a console. They're supporting it like a console. It's their 9th gen console. It's their 9th gen. It's the 9th gen console for Nintendo. It's their 6th overall console. Okay? Or you could call it their 6th overall console / handheld hybrid / 5th handheld hybrid, because I believe Nintendo's had Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, DS, 3DS, Switch. Yeah, it's their 6th console, their 5th overall handheld, if you want to call it a handheld. But still, it's their 9th gen gaming device. So get over it. So with that being said, what does this mean for you as, for Joe Blow consumer? Nothing. Enjoy playing your games on the Switch. Me personally, I find that the Switch is, I'm mostly underwhelmed with a lot of the games that are on the Switch. Because the big thing about the Switch is, the first party games I'm okay with. The third party games, like, why should I pay, why should I pay $39, $49, $59, $69 to play a game on the Switch when I can play it on PC for less? So for third-party games and second-party exclusives on the Switch that are also hitting PC, I can get them less on PC. So, like why pay a premium for Nintendo games? Just because they're on the Switch. Like, to me, that's not a big deal. Like, that's not a selling point for me. It's like, it's on the Switch. I can play it while I'm taking a shit. That's not a selling point for me. Even with the Wii U, I was never, it was like, well, you can play the game while you're away from... That's not a selling point for me. I'm not impressed. So with that being said, you might ask, what does that mean for Joe Blow, average consumer gamer? And I'll get to that after the cut. So the big thing that people need to realize is this doesn't affect gamers whatsoever. You know, well, actually, it doesn't affect average gamers very much. For people who like myself, who are really into it, the Switch is a 9th gen console. It's Nintendo's 9th gen gaming device. That's just the way it is. Okay? If the Switch wasn't a 9th gen gaming device, then Sony and Microsoft wouldn't have been so... How can I put this? So quick, so hastened to release their 9th gen consoles. They wouldn't have. Because if Sony and Microsoft had their way, they would fucking have their shit out still. They'd still be out just, having their stuff out. So, people need to understand that, okay? Console manufacturers want to keep their game generations going on as long as they can. Nintendo released the Famicom in '83. They didn't stop selling Nintendo games until like 91, 92. So that was a 9-year game cycle for Nintendo. Every console manufacturer wants to have a 9-year gaming cycle where there's still games coming out for the systems. Okay? Because the cost to manufacture these consoles goes down over time, and they literally spend less money as time goes by. They do not want to spend more money than they have to. The hardware gets easier to develop for because their developers get better at developing them. And it's just all around just better for them. And that's what they want to do. Okay? That's what gamers want to fucking do. That's what console manufacturers want to do. Okay? The audience gets bigger, so they don't have to put as much effort into advertising. And they know that a certain amount of people, concerning demographics, are going to buy a set amount of games, okay? Nintendo knows that no matter what happens, a certain amount of people are going to buy a Mario Party, right? They're going to buy, Mario games. That's just, whether you like it or not, it's going to come out no matter what. And that's just the way it is, okay? That's how, companies want that. Sony wishes that the PS4, they could have extended the life of the PS4 another 3 or 4 years. But Nintendo came out with the Switch. And the Switch is selling gangbusters, okay? It's selling goddamn gangbusters. So
Where is everyone?
that's what, every company wants to do, wants to have long life cycles. Every company wishes that they could have a 10-year console life cycle, but unfortunately, we've been stuck in like a 5 to 7 year console life cycle, where basically a new console comes out after 5.5 years, and then you have a period of 18 months to 2 years where you're getting cross releases on both platforms. And then there's a certain point where developers leave the old shit behind and they're just making shit exclusively for the next gen. And that's just the way it is. Get over it. So, with all that being said, I'll get to the conclusion after the cut. So the conclusion is going to be real simple and real sweet. Basically, the thing that people need to understand is this.
You, hold right there. Let's see your letter.
The console gens have become less and less impressive with each jump from the 6th gen onwards. Yeah, graphically, the graphics have gotten better. That is true. But ultimately, graphics can only take you so far. In terms of like new genres being created or coming to consoles, we're not seeing that leap in gaming. Okay, the 3rd gen to the 4th gen, you saw a lot of games that maybe were kind of poorly represented in the 3rd gen come to their fruition in the 4th gen. You know, like Super Metroid is functionally the same game as the original Metroid in terms of like the design philosophy and what you're doing and stuff like that. But Super Metroid is so much better realized than the original Metroid, and that's because of the hardware. You know, from 4th gen to 5th gen. Star Fox for the SNES, personally, it's my favorite Star Fox game. I like the original, the simplicity of it. But a lot of those ideas were perfected in Star Fox 64. That's just the way it is. You know, we aren't seeing that leap in that qualitative leap in gaming where we've never seen this before. We've seen, you know, for the last 2 gens, we haven't seen that. We've had MMOs ported over to the console. We've had, you know, in the 6th gen, we had a PC style first person shooter put on a console with Halo. Actually, before that, with in the 5th gen with Perfect Dark and GoldenEye, but it wasn't quite perfected. They pretty much got it, you know, hit the nail on the head with Halo. And that's just the way it is. We're not seeing that qualitative leap in gaming. We're not seeing new shit come out. And that's just the way it is. Get over it. Get over it, brah. So, the important thing to realize behind all of this, beyond all of this, is this. Gaming-wise, none of this shit is really a rap or anything. It's just, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. And people need to realize this. So, my overall conclusion is just for me to reiterate what I previously said, encapsulate it. You know, the Switch is a 9th gen console. None of these 9th gen systems are really doing anything that is substantially could not have been done last gen. Aside from maybe the Switch is basically the Wii U on steroids in terms of its gameplay gimmick. The gameplay gimmick of the Wii U was you can take your game from your TV to your gamepad and, you know, play your games from a short distance away from your gamepad. That's neat, I guess. And then you had the Switch, which is, hey, now you can take your game from your TV to your gamepad wherever the hell you want. So it's basically the same concept, but expanded to its natural conclusion. And that's fucking it. There's nothing going on the Switch where it's like, this couldn't have been done last gen. Nothing. But if you say that about the Switch, you can say that about the PS5, the Series X. There's nothing going on those consoles that couldn't have been done last gen. Not a damn thing.
There you are.
So, with that being said, I'm going to wrap things up with
The old adage is true. The sun
upcoming
is
events
rising
and
always
such
today.
after the cut.
What are you doing here?
So here we go with upcoming events. As per usual, we'll be doing the same thing we always do. BS Busters every Friday, every Wednesday and Saturday, 7:30 p.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for joining us ahead of time. Remember, rate, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you'll be alerted whenever we have our podcast about to drop. So, if you would like to be a member of the podcast, drop me, let me in the comment section, or you can reach me at Twitter at mrredfox91. Matthew Wesley at mrredfox91, or you can just at me on Twitter at mrredfox91. You can do that shit. And that's just the way it is. So you can also reach me at my Gmail. At mrredfoxbsbuster at gmail.com. So you can do that shit. If you would like to be on the cast, or you would like to suggest topics, or have any questions like that. So that's just the way it is. So thank you for joining. That's the end of this podcast. Sorry, not this podcast, this video. Been doing too many podcasts lately. So rate, comment, share, subscribe, ring the bell icon. Once again, if you would like to be a part of the cast, or you have topic suggestions, that type of thing, you can @ me on Twitter at mrredfox91, or you can email me at mrredfoxbsbusters at gmail.com. Sorry, mrredfoxbsbuster at gmail.com. So that being said, that's it. This video. Thank you for giving me your time. Peace.